Hey everyone. Before we get into this, if you're into stories about childhood memories that turn into nightmares, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that like button if you want more content like this. And seriously, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love hearing from you guys. Now, what happened 3 weeks ago still keeps me up at night. Let's get into it. Pinewood Elementary shut down in 2019. I remember seeing the article online, the way my stomach dropped when I read the headline. That was it. No more school. The building where I'd spent 6 years of my life, gone. Just like that. I met Jake and Mira there. 5th grade, Mrs. Patterson's class. We weren't friends right away. Jake was the loud kid who made jokes during reading time. Mira was the teacher's pet who always had her homework done a week early. I was somewhere in between, trying to figure out where I fit. Then came the science fair incident. Jake's volcano exploded too early, covering Mira's solar system project in red foam. She was furious. I was standing nearby and Jake blamed me to avoid getting in trouble. Mira knew he was lying and called him out in front of everyone. After that, we became a trio. Strange how these things work. After elementary school, we stayed close, borrowed our parents' phones to text, sent emails, eventually got our own social media accounts. We went to different high schools but stayed in touch. Then college scattered us across 3 states. Jake went to Ohio for engineering. Mira ended up in Boston for pre-med. I stayed local, community college, and then a job that paid the bills. For a while, we barely saw each other. Then Jake got married 4 years ago, and we all made it to the wedding. That was the last time the 3 of us were in the same room, until last weekend. Jake sent a link to our group chat. I was at work when my phone buzzed. The headline read, "Demolition begins on former Pinewood Elementary. Residents say goodbye to landmark." There was a photo of a wrecking ball positioned in front of the main entrance. The same entrance where we'd lined up every morning for 6 years. My phone buzzed again. Jake had typed, "Remember the time capsule?" Then Mira. Oh my God, I completely forgot about that. I stared at my screen, memories flooding back. 5th grade. Mrs. Patterson made every student contribute something to a time capsule. We were supposed to bury it on school grounds and dig it up at our 20-year reunion. Except there was never a reunion. The school closed and we all moved on. The capsule had been forgotten. Me. 5th grade, right? We buried it behind the gym. Jake. Yeah, think it's still there? Mira. We should get it before they demolish everything. Jake. When? Mira. This weekend? I can drive up Saturday. I hesitated. It had been 4 years since we'd all been together. Life had happened. Jobs, relationships, responsibilities. But the idea of seeing them again, of digging up that capsule and seeing what our 10-year-old selves thought was important, I couldn't say no to that. Me, I'm in. Jake, same, Saturday at 2? That's how we ended up here. Standing in front of a chain-link fence on a Saturday afternoon, staring at what used to be our elementary school. The main building was already half demolished. Piles of brick and twisted metal covered the grounds. The playground was gone. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds. Mira arrived first. Her car was already pulled off the gravel road when I got there, parked just far enough from the demolition zone to feel safe. She was leaning against the hood, arms crossed, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked different than I remembered. Older. We all were. I pulled up beside her and got out. The October air was cold, sharp in my lungs. "You're late," she said, not looking up from her phone. "You're early," I grinned. She gave a half smile. "Maybe I just won the race." The fence had a no trespassing sign zip-tied to it, but the gate wasn't locked, just latched. easy enough to open if you were willing to risk it. 10 minutes later, we heard Jake's truck coming around the bend. He parked crooked, engine still running for a second before he killed it. When he got out, he was already grinning, that same grin from 5th grade when he knew he was about to get away with something. "Took the scenic route," he said, slamming the door. And by scenic I mean I got lost twice and had to use GPS to find a school I attended for 6 years. "You brought a shovel, right?" Mira asked. He patted the bed of his truck. "2 shovels, flashlight, and snacks because I'm not doing manual labor on an empty stomach." He looked around, nodding slowly. "Weird how it feels smaller." "It's not," I said. "We're just bigger. Speak for yourself," Jake said, patting his stomach. "I peaked in 8th grade and it's been downhill since." We started toward the back of the property, following the path our 10-year-old selves had taken 20 years ago. The gym was partially collapsed. The roof had caved in on one side and the walls were crumbling. But the back field was still there, overgrown with tall grass and weeds that came up to our knees. "You remember where exactly?" Mira asked, scanning the area. Jake pointed toward a cluster of old oak trees near the far fence. "Over there. Mrs. Patterson made us dig next to that big tree so we'd remember where it was." We pushed through the grass, stepping over broken concrete and rusted playground equipment. The tree was still standing, massive and old, its branches bare in the autumn air. At its base, partially hidden by overgrown weeds, was a small stone marker we'd placed 20 years ago. The paint had faded, but you could still make out the words, "Class of 2004 Time Capsule." "There," Mira said, kneeling down. "It's still here." Jake pulled the shovels from his shoulder and handed one to me. "Let's do this." We started digging. The ground was harder than expected, packed down by 20 years of weather and neglect. Jake took the first shift, driving the shovel down in steady rhythms. Then me, then Mira. We rotated, taking turns, our breath coming out in visible clouds in the cold air. After about 20 minutes, my shovel hit something solid with a dull thunk. "Got it," I said. We dropped to our knees and used our hands to clear away the remaining dirt. The capsule was a large metal box, about 2 feet long and a foot wide. It was rusted around the edges, but intact. We'd sealed it with duct tape that had long since deteriorated. The lid was held down by a simple latch. Jake grabbed the latch and hesitated. "You guys ready for this?" Mira nodded. "Open it." He flipped the latch and pulled. The lid resisted for a moment, then opened with a groan of old metal. Inside, wrapped in plastic bags that had yellowed with age, were our items. I could see a folded piece of paper, a CD case, a small toy, random objects that 10-year-olds thought were important. Jake reached in first and pulled out a plastic bag containing a toy race car. He held it up, grinning. "Still got it. This was my favorite Hot Wheels." Mira pulled out a folded piece of paper and carefully unwrapped it. It was a drawing she'd made, a crayon sketch of her family standing in front of their house. The colors had faded, but it was still recognizable. She smiled, something sad and nostalgic crossing her face. I reached in and found my contribution, a CD of my favorite band from 5th grade. The case was cracked, but the disc inside looked okay. I held it up and laughed. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. We kept pulling items out. Photos, letters to our future selves, a class picture where we all looked impossibly young. Jake found a pack of trading cards he'd been obsessed with. Mira found a bracelet she'd made in art class. Normal stuff. Childhood memories preserved in a metal box. Then Jake pulled out an envelope. It was different from the others, thicker. The paper was aged and stained, but there was no name on it. No indication of who had put it in. "What's this?" he asked, turning it over. "I don't remember that," Mira said, leaning closer. Jake opened the envelope and pulled out 3 photographs. They were Polaroids, faded but still clear. The first photo showed the three of us on the playground. We were sitting on the swings, smiling at the camera. I remembered that day. It was the last week of 5th grade, right before we buried the capsule. The second photo was similar. The three of us standing in front of the school, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning like idiots. But the third photo made my stomach drop. It was us again. Same location, same pose, but our faces were wrong. Our smiles looked forced. Our eyes looked empty. And written across the bottom in faded red ink were 3 words. "They know now." "What the hell?" Jake muttered, staring at the photo. Mira grabbed it from his hands, her expression shifting from confusion to unease. "This wasn't in here. We would have remembered this. Maybe someone added it later?" I suggested, even though I didn't believe it. The capsule had been buried for 20 years. No one had dug it up before us. Jake reached back into the envelope and pulled out 3 more items. They were folded pieces of paper, each one marked with a name. His name was on the first one, Mira's on the second, mine on the third. He unfolded his slowly, hands shaking slightly. His face went pale as he read. Then he looked up at us, his expression unreadable. "What does it say?" Mira asked. Jake swallowed hard. "It says how I die." "What?" I said, leaning forward. He held up the paper so we could see. Written in neat, childlike handwriting were the words, "Jake Mitchell, November 2nd, 2024, 7:43 p.m. car accident on Route 46. Head-on collision with truck dies on impact." I felt my stomach twist. November 2nd was today, and it was already past 6 p.m. Mira grabbed her paper and unfolded it. Her hands were shaking as she read. Then she dropped it like it had burned her. "Mine says the same thing," she whispered. "How I'm going to die." November 2nd. Tonight. Different time and place, but tonight. I picked up the third paper, the one with my name on it. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The handwriting was the same. Neat, childlike, impossible. Daniel Cross. November 3rd, 2024, 3:17 a.m. In his apartment, alone in bed, heart stops beating. No warning. My heart was pounding. This wasn't possible. This was a prank, someone's sick joke. But who would do this? Who would dig up a time capsule, plant fake predictions, and rebury it just to mess with us? Jake stood up abruptly. "This is insane. This has to be fake." Mira was still staring at her paper. "It says I die at 9:15 tonight, drowning, in my own bathtub." The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the field. The demolished school looked even more ominous in the fading light. I looked at the time on my phone. It was 6:47 p.m. According to Jake's paper, he had less than an hour left. "This is a prank," I said, trying to convince myself as much as them. Someone did this to freak us out. It's not real. Jake was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. But who? Who would even know we'd come here today? We didn't tell anyone. Mira stood up, brushing dirt off her jeans. "I'm leaving, right now. I'm going home, and I'm not taking a bath tonight or going near water or doing anything that even remotely resembles what that paper says." "Same," Jake said. "I'm taking back roads. No Route 46, no highways. I'm driving like a grandma all the way home." "We should all leave together," I suggested. "Safety in numbers." Mira shook her head. "I live 2 hours away. You guys live in opposite directions. We can't all carpool." She was right. We'd driven separately. We were going to separate places. And according to those papers, 2 of us weren't going to make it through the night. Jake grabbed his phone and took a picture of all 3 papers laid out on the ground. Then he looked at us. Let's promise something right now. Whatever happens tonight, whoever makes it, we check in with each other. Every hour. If someone doesn't respond, the others call for help immediately. Deal? Deal, Mira said. Deal, I agreed. We walked back to our cars in silence. The demolished school loomed behind us, dark and broken. I kept thinking about that third photo, the one with our empty eyes and those words, "They know now." Know what? What were we supposed to know? Jake got to his truck first. He threw the shovels in the back and turned to us. 7:43. That's when my paper says it happens. I'll text you both at 7:44 to prove I made it past. Mira nodded. And I'll text at 9:16. I didn't say anything. My time wasn't until 3:17 a.m. 7 hours away. If Jake and Mira made it through their times, maybe I would too. Maybe this was all just a sick prank and we were falling for it. But I didn't believe that. Something in my gut told me those papers were real. That somehow, impossibly, our 10-year-old selves had known exactly when and how we were going to die. And that knowledge had been waiting in a metal box for 20 years. Jake climbed into his truck and started the engine. "Be careful," he said through the open window. "You too," I replied. Mira was already in her car. Doors locked, engine running. She waved once before pulling away, tires crunching on the gravel. Jake followed a moment later, his truck disappearing around the bend. And then I was alone, standing in front of a demolished elementary school, holding a piece of paper that said I was going to die in 7 hours. The sky was dark now. The temperature had dropped. I got in my car and locked the doors, my hands shaking as I put the key in the ignition. My phone buzzed. Group chat. Jake, heading home, taking Route 9 instead of 46. We'll text at 7:44. Mira, same, going straight home. Staying away from all water. We'll text at 9:16. Me, drive safe, both of you. I pulled onto the road and started driving. My apartment was 40 minutes away. I could be home by 7:30, well before Jake's predicted time. But what then? I'd sit in my apartment and wait for Jake's text at 7:44. Wait for Mira's text at 9:16. Wait for 3:17 a.m. when, according to a 20-year-old piece of paper, my heart would stop beating while I slept. I turned on the radio to fill the silence. A song from 5th grade came on, the same band from the CD I'd put in the time capsule. I changed the station quickly, my hands gripping the wheel tighter. At 7:30, I pulled into my apartment complex. I parked and sat in the car for a moment, staring at my phone. 13 minutes until Jake's time. I sent a message to the group chat. Me, I'm home. Jake, you good? 3 dots appeared. Then Jake, yeah, almost home. 10 minutes out. I got out of the car and headed to my apartment. The building was quiet. Most people were out on a Saturday night. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, turning on every light as I went. The apartment felt too empty, too quiet. At 7:40, my phone buzzed. Jake, 5 minutes. Pulling onto my street now. Me, good. Text as soon as you're inside. Mira, Jake, be careful. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, watching the clock. 7:41, 7:42, 7:43. At 7:43 exactly, I held my breath. The seconds ticked by. 7:43:15, 7:43:30, 7:43:45, then 7:44. My phone stayed silent. Come on, Jake, I whispered. Text us. 7:44:30. Nothing. 7:45:00. Still nothing. At 7:45, Mira called me. I answered immediately. He's not texting, she said, her voice tight with panic. I know. Maybe his phone died. He was texting 2 minutes ago. His phone was fine. Call him, I said. Try calling. I heard her phone beep as she switched lines. A moment later, she was back. Straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking. This isn't happening. Call 911, Mira said. Tell them to check route. No, wait, he said he was on his street. Tell them to check his house. I'll call them. You stay on the line. I called 911 on my other phone, gave them Jake's address, told them I was worried about my friend who wasn't answering his phone. The dispatcher said they'd send someone to check. I thanked her and hung up. Mira was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing. This was supposed to be fake. This was supposed to be a prank. I know, I said, my voice hollow. We stayed on the phone in silence, waiting. At 8:03, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I answered. Is this Daniel Cross? A man's voice asked. Yes, this is Officer Patterson with the county police. We received your call about Jake Mitchell. I'm sorry to inform you that there's been an accident. My vision blurred. What kind of accident? Mr. Mitchell's vehicle was struck by another car at the intersection near his residence. The collision was severe. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The phone slipped from my hand. I could hear Mira screaming on the other line. I picked up the phone, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold it. When? I asked. When did it happen? The officer paused. According to the timestamp, the collision occurred at 7:43 p.m. I told Officer Patterson I'd call Jake's family. Then I hung up and just stared at the wall. Mira was still on the other line, sobbing. I could hear her trying to catch her breath between gasps. He's gone, I said. Jake's dead. She made a sound that wasn't quite a scream, more like something breaking. I held the phone away from my ear, my own throat tight, my eyes burning. We stayed like that for a while, her crying, me silent, both of us trying to process what had just happened. The paper was right, Mira finally said, her voice raw. It said 7:43 car accident, and that's exactly what happened. I know, which means mine is right too, 9:15, drowning, in my bathtub. I checked the time. It was 8:17. She had 58 minutes. Don't go near water, I said. Don't take a bath. Don't even wash your hands. Just stay away from anything that could. I trailed off. I didn't know how to finish that sentence. How do you avoid drowning when you're not near water? I'm not going to die, Mira said, and I could hear her trying to convince herself. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm staying in my living room. No bathroom, no kitchen. I'm sitting on my couch and I'm not moving until after 9:15. Good, that's good. I'll stay on the phone with you. What about you? Your paper says 3:17 a.m. That's, she paused, 7 hours away. I'll worry about that after we get you past 9:15. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, we should have never opened that capsule. I know. Jake would still be alive. I know. We sat in silence. I could hear her breathing, hear the sound of her TV in the background. She'd turned it on for noise, for distraction, for anything to make the apartment feel less empty. I did the same, turning on my TV to some mindless show I wasn't watching. At 8:45, Mira said, I need to tell you something, in case I don't make it. You're going to make it. Just listen. When we were in 5th grade, when we buried that capsule, I wrote you a letter. It was supposed to be a confession for when we were older. I had a crush on you, a big one. I was going to tell you at the 20-year reunion. I didn't know what to say. We'd been friends for so long. I'd never thought of her that way. Or maybe I had, and just never admitted it. I chickened out, she continued. I never put the letter in the capsule. I threw it away. But I wanted you to know. Just in case. Mira, I started. It's okay. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that 5th grade me was braver than 25-year-old me. Funny how that works. The clock on my wall read 8:53, 22 minutes. Tell me about Boston, I said, trying to distract her. You never talk about your job. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. There's not much to tell. I'm a researcher at a hospital. Boring lab work mostly. I stare at cells under microscopes. Sometimes I forget what sunlight looks like. You always wanted to be a doctor. Yeah. Turns out med school is expensive and hard, and I got tired halfway through. So now I'm the person who helps doctors figure out what's wrong. But I don't actually get to help patients. It's fine. It pays the bills. We kept talking. Small talk. Meaningless conversation about weather and traffic and shows we'd been watching. Anything to fill the time. Anything to distract from what was coming. At 9:10, she went quiet. Mira, I said, 5 minutes. I know, but you're not in the bathroom. You're not near water. You're safe. Am I? What if a pipe bursts? What if it rains and the ceiling leaks and I slip and hit my head? What if there's some way this happens that I haven't thought of? That's not going to happen. Jake probably thought that too. He probably thought he was being careful. She was right. Jake had avoided Route 46. He'd taken back roads. He'd been almost home, almost safe. And it hadn't mattered. The prediction found a way. At 9:13, Mira said, I'm scared. I know. Me too. If I don't make it, tell my mom I love her. And tell her I'm sorry I didn't visit more. I kept saying I was too busy, but I was just being selfish. You're going to tell her yourself. 2 minutes. I held my phone so tight my hand hurt. I could hear Mira's breathing getting faster. Could hear her trying to stay calm and failing. My own heart was pounding. I wanted to tell her it would be okay. I wanted to promise her she'd make it past 9:15. But I couldn't. Jake's prediction had been exact. Down to the minute. Down to the method. There was no reason to think Mira's would be any different. 1 minute, she whispered. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. The seconds stretched out. I watched my clock tick. 9:14:30. 9:14:45. Each second felt like an hour. Then 9:15. I held my breath, waited. Listened to Mira breathing on the other end of the line. 9:15. Mira, I said, I'm here. She sounded surprised. I'm still here. 9:15:30. Nothing's happening, she said, and I could hear the hope creeping into her voice. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe Jake's was a coincidence and mine is wrong. 9:15:45. I let myself believe it. Let myself think that maybe the predictions weren't absolute. Maybe they could be changed. Maybe we could fight against whatever this was. 9:16:00. Mira laughed, a real laugh. Oh my God, I made it. I actually made it past. And then I heard it. A sound on her end of the line. A crash, glass breaking, Mira screaming. Mira, I shouted. What's happening? There was chaos. More crashing, the sound of water rushing. Mira gasping and sputtering, then nothing. Mira! I screamed into the phone. Silence. I grabbed my other phone and called 911 again. Gave them Mira's address. Told them there was an emergency. The dispatcher asked what kind of emergency, and I didn't know what to say. I think my friend is drowning in her apartment. They said they'd send someone. I stayed on the line with Mira's phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. Just silence. And the faint sound of water. At 9:31, I got a call from a different officer. Miss Rodriguez had been found unresponsive in her apartment. A pipe had burst in the ceiling above her living room. Thousands of gallons of water had flooded down. She'd been standing directly underneath when it happened. The force had knocked her unconscious. By the time the water drained, she had drowned. Time of death, 9:15 p.m. I sat on my couch in my empty apartment, phone still in my hand, and felt completely numb. 2 of my best friends were dead, both exactly as predicted, both down to the minute, and I was next, 3:17 a.m. 6 hours away. I should have called someone, should have called my parents, should have driven to the hospital, should have done anything except sit there. But what was the point? Jake had tried to be careful and it hadn't mattered. Mira had avoided water and had found her anyway. The predictions weren't warnings. They were certainties. Written 20 years ago by, what? Our 10-year-old selves? How had we known? How was any of this possible? I pulled out the paper again, the one with my name on it. Read it for the 100th time. Daniel Cross, November 3rd, 2024. 3:17 a.m. In his apartment. Alone in bed. Heart stops beating. No warning. No warning. That was almost worse than the others. At least Jake and Mira had known what was coming. They'd had a method, a cause, something to try to avoid. But me? My heart would just stop. No reason, no cause, just sudden death while I slept. Except I wasn't going to sleep. That was the obvious answer. I'd stay awake. If I couldn't die in my sleep, then the prediction would be wrong. I'd beat it. I made coffee. Strong coffee. Enough to keep me wired through the night. I turned on every light in my apartment, turned the TV volume up, anything to keep me awake and alert. At midnight, I called my mom. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Daniel? What's wrong?" "Nothing. I paused. "I just wanted to hear your voice. It's midnight. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to tell you I love you." There was a pause. Then she said, "I love you too, sweetie. Are you sure everything's okay?" "Everything's fine. Go back to sleep. I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up before she could ask more questions. Tomorrow. If there was a tomorrow. At 1 a.m., I was still wired from the coffee. I paced my apartment, checking the time every few minutes. 2 hours and 17 minutes. I could make it. I just had to stay awake. At 2 a.m., the exhaustion hit. I'd been running on adrenaline and caffeine, but my body was crashing. My eyes felt heavy. I made more coffee, drank it black and scalding hot. It helped for about 20 minutes. Then the exhaustion came back stronger. I slapped myself hard. The sting helped clear my head for a moment. I did it again. And again. Anything to stay conscious. At 2:30 a.m., I was losing the fight. My body wanted to shut down. Wanted to sleep. I stood up, started doing jumping jacks, then push-ups, then running in place. Anything to keep the blood moving, to keep my heart rate up, to stay awake. At 3 a.m., I had 17 minutes left. I was drenched in sweat, my muscles shaking from exertion. My heart was pounding hard in my chest, too hard. I could feel each beat, strong and painful, like it was trying to break through my rib cage. That's when I realized my mistake. I'd been trying to stay awake, trying to keep my heart rate elevated. But what if that was the problem? What if the exertion, the stress, the exhaustion, what if all of that was putting too much strain on my heart? What if I was killing myself trying to stay alive? I stopped moving, sat down on the couch, tried to calm my breathing. My heart was still racing, pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. I could feel it in my throat, in my temples, in every pulse point. At 3:10 a.m., 7 minutes left, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. It lasted only a second, but it was enough to terrify me. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, then stopped. What would I tell them? That a piece of paper said I was going to die and I was having chest pain? They'd think I was having a panic attack. And maybe I was. Maybe this was all psychosomatic. Maybe I was so convinced I was going to die that my body was making it happen. At 3:15 a.m., 2 minutes left, the pain came back. Sharper this time, radiating down my left arm. Classic heart attack symptoms. I should call 911, I should do something, but I couldn't move, couldn't think, could only stare at my phone, watching the seconds tick by. 3:16 a.m. 1 minute. The pain intensified. I clutched my chest, gasping. This was it. This was how it ended. Exactly as predicted. Alone in my apartment, heart giving out. No warning except the warning I'd had all along. 3:16:30. I thought about Jake, about Mira, about the three of us in 5th grade, burying that capsule, thinking we were preserving memories for our future selves. We had no idea we were sealing our death certificates. 3:16:45. 15 seconds. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to die. I wasn't ready. I had so much I still wanted to do, wanted to say, wanted to experience. But none of that mattered now. The paper had been right about Jake, right about Mira. It would be right about me. 3:17:00. I waited for my heart to stop, waited for the pain to overwhelm me, waited for the end. But nothing happened. The pain in my chest was still there, but it wasn't getting worse. My heart was still racing, but it was still beating. I was still breathing. 3:17:15. I opened my eyes, looked at the clock. I was past the time, past the moment when I was supposed to die. 3:17:30. The pain started to fade. My heart rate began to slow. I could breathe easier. 3:18:00. I was alive. I'd made it past my predicted death time, which meant the predictions could be wrong, which meant I'd beaten it. I laughed, a broken, hysterical laugh. I'd survived. Jake and Mira hadn't, but I had. I didn't know why. Didn't know what made me different. Maybe it was staying awake. Maybe it was sheer luck. Maybe the universe had decided 3 deaths were enough. I collapsed back on the couch, exhausted and relieved and guilty all at once. I'd lost my 2 best friends, but I was alive. At 3:19, I heard a sound from my bedroom. At first I thought I'd imagined it, some product of exhaustion and stress, but then it came again. A creak, like someone stepping on the floorboards. I froze. I lived alone. There was no one else in my apartment. The doors were locked. The windows were closed. Another creak, closer this time. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911 for the 3rd time tonight. But before I could dial, a figure appeared in the doorway between the living room and the hall. It was me, not a reflection, not a trick of the light. It was me standing in my own doorway staring at myself. Same height, same build, same face, but wrong. The eyes were empty. The smile was vacant. And in its hand was the paper. The prediction with my name on it. The other me held up the paper and pointed to the time. 3:17 a.m. Then it pointed to the date. November 3rd. Then it pointed to the location. In his apartment. Everything was right. Everything had been accounted for, except one detail. The other, me, smiled wider, showing too many teeth. Then it spoke in my voice. "You're already dead, Daniel. You've been dead since you opened that capsule. We all have. You just haven't realized it yet." It took a step forward, then another. I tried to move, tried to run, tried to do anything. But my body wouldn't respond. I was frozen in place, watching this thing that looked like me cross the room. When it reached the couch, it placed one hand on my chest, right over my heart. The touch was cold, wrong. The predictions aren't about when you die, it said. They're about when you realize you're already dead. Jake realized it at 7:43, Mira at 9:15. And you, Daniel, you realize it now. My chest hurt. Not the sharp pain from before. This was different. Hollow. Empty. Like something essential had been removed. The thing that looked like me leaned closer, its empty eyes inches from mine. "Welcome home," it whispered. Then it was gone. Just vanished. And I was alone again in my apartment, sitting on my couch, hand pressed to my chest where that thing had touched me. My heart was beating. I could feel it. But something was wrong. The rhythm was off, irregular, stuttering, like a machine running down. I looked at my phone. The screen was black, dead battery. But I hadn't been using it. It had been fully charged an hour ago. I tried the lights. Nothing. The TV had gone dark. Everything electronic in my apartment was dead. I went to the window and looked outside. The street lights were out. Every apartment window in the building was dark. But I could see something else. Figures. Standing on the sidewalk, standing in doorways. All of them looking up at my window. All of them were me. Dozens of versions of me, standing perfectly still, staring up with those empty eyes. All of them smiling. I backed away from the window, my heart hammering erratically in my chest. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But Jake had died exactly as predicted. Mira had died exactly as predicted. And I looked down at my hands. They looked wrong, translucent. I could see through them to the couch beneath. The prediction had been right. November 3rd, 3:17 a.m. In my apartment. Heart stopped beating. No warning. I just hadn't died yet. Not completely. I was stuck in that moment, in that transition, watching myself fade. I thought about the time capsule. About the envelope we'd found with no name on it. About the photographs of us with empty eyes and the words, "They know now," written in red. We'd known. Somehow, our 10-year-old selves had known we were already dead. Had known that opening that capsule would complete something that had started 20 years ago. Had known that the moment we pulled those papers out, we'd seal our fates. My vision was blurring now. My body felt light, insubstantial. I could hear my heartbeat slowing, stuttering, stopping. In my last moments, I thought about Mrs. Patterson's 5th grade class. Thought about the day we buried that capsule. Thought about how excited we'd been to create something for our future selves. We'd been so young, so naive. We'd thought we were preserving memories. We had no idea we were writing our obituaries. I woke up to my alarm blaring. My phone screen said 7 a.m., November 2nd. I sat up in bed, disoriented and confused. My chest didn't hurt. My hands looked solid. The apartment lights worked. I grabbed my phone and checked the group chat. Empty. No messages about the school demolition. No article about Pinewood Elementary. Nothing. I scrolled back through our messages. The last text was from 3 weeks ago. Jake complaining about his job. Mira sending a meme. Normal stuff. Nothing about time capsules or predictions or death. A dream. It had all been a dream. The most vivid, horrifying dream I'd ever had. But just a dream. I got out of bed, legs shaky, and went to the bathroom. Splashed cold water on my face. Stared at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. Hadn't been sleeping well lately. Maybe that explained the nightmare. My phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Jake had posted a photo of his breakfast with the caption, "Saturday morning vibes." The timestamp said 15 minutes ago. Jake was alive, posting pictures of scrambled eggs and coffee, not dead in a car accident at 7:43 p.m. Alive. I checked Mira's profile. She'd posted a story 2 hours ago, a video of her walking through Boston, complaining about the cold, alive, not drowned in her apartment at 9:15 p.m., alive. Relief washed over me so intensely I had to sit down on the edge of the bathtub. It had been a dream, a horrible, realistic dream, but just a dream. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Is this Daniel Cross?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes." "This is Principal Morrison from Pinewood Elementary. We have you listed as one of the students who participated in the time capsule project in 2004. My stomach dropped. Number. This wasn't happening. This was supposed to be a dream. I wanted to reach out because we're demolishing the school next week and we'd like to give former students a chance to retrieve their time capsule before the grounds are cleared. Would you be interested in scheduling a pickup time? I started, my mouth dry. When is the demolition? It begins Monday, November 4th. So we'd need you to pick up the capsule by Sunday at the latest. We've already contacted the other students from your class. Several have confirmed they'll be coming this weekend. My hands were shaking. Which students? Let me check, she said. I heard papers rustling. Yes, we've heard back from Jake Mitchell and Mira Rodriguez. They'll both be there Saturday afternoon around 2 p.m. Does that time work for you as well? I hung up, dropped the phone like it had burned me. This wasn't a dream. Or maybe it was, but I was still in it, still trapped in whatever nightmare logic had started the moment we opened that capsule. Number. I hadn't opened the capsule, not yet. That was tomorrow. Saturday at 2 p.m., which meant I could stop it. I could warn Jake and Mira, tell them not to go, tell them not to open it. We could let the school demolish the time capsule and whatever curse was inside it and just walk away. I called Jake. He answered on the second ring. Hey man, what's up? Don't go tomorrow. What? The time capsule. Don't go dig it up. Don't go to the school. Just trust me. Don't go. There was a pause. Then Jake said, How did you know about that? I literally just got the call like an hour ago. I haven't even told you yet. I know. And I'm telling you we shouldn't go. Something bad will happen if we do. Dude, are you okay? You sound paranoid. I'm not paranoid, I'm trying to save your life. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, seriously, what's going on? Just promise me you won't go. Promise me. I don't know what's happening with you right now, but I'm going. Mira's going. It's just a time capsule, man. What's the worst that could happen? I wanted to scream. Wanted to tell him exactly what would happen. Car accident at 7:43 p.m. Head-on collision. Dead on impact. But he wouldn't believe me. How could he? Please, I said, just don't go. He sighed. I'll see you tomorrow, Daniel. Get some sleep. You sound like you need it. He hung up. I called Mira next. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Mira, please don't go to the school tomorrow. I know this sounds crazy, but trust me. Something terrible will happen if you go. Please just don't go. She didn't call back. I spent the rest of Saturday in my apartment, pacing, trying to figure out what to do. I could go to the school tomorrow, physically stop them from opening the capsule. But would that work? Or would the curse find another way? The predictions had been exact, down to the minute, down to the method. If destiny, or fate, or whatever this was, wanted Jake and Mira dead, would changing the location change anything? At 7:43 p.m., I held my breath, waited. Checked my phone for news of accidents on local roads. Nothing. Jake posted another Instagram story at 8:15. Him and his wife watching a movie. Alive, safe. At 9:15 p.m., I checked Mira's social media. She'd posted a photo at 9:30. Her cat sleeping on her lap. Alive, safe. I made it to 3:17 a.m. without incident. My heart kept beating. I stayed solid. No doppelgangers appeared in my doorway. Sunday morning came. I was exhausted from not sleeping, from anxiety, from the weight of knowledge I couldn't share. But Jake and Mira were alive, which meant the predictions weren't real yet, which meant I still had a chance to stop this. At 1:45 p.m., I got in my car and drove to Pinewood Elementary. I had to beat them there. Had to stop them before they dug up the capsule. I arrived at 2:03. Jake's truck was already in the parking lot. So was Mira's car. Number, I was too late. I parked and ran to the back of the school, to the field where the oak tree stood. I could see them in the distance, kneeling on the ground, digging. The metal box was already visible in the hole. "Stop!" I shouted, running toward them. "Don't open it!" They looked up, confused. Jake stood, brushing dirt off his jeans. "Dude, where have you been? We've been calling you." "Don't open that box," I said, reaching them, out of breath. "We need to leave it buried. We need to go right now." Mira laughed. "What are you talking about? We're already here. We already dug it up. We're not leaving without seeing what's inside." "Please," I begged. "You don't understand. If you open that, you'll die. Both of you will die exactly the way it says on the papers inside." They looked at each other, then back at me. Jake's expression shifted from confused to concerned. "Daniel, are you okay? Have you been sleeping?" "I'm fine. I'm trying to save your lives. There are predictions in that box. Death predictions. And they come true. Exactly. Down to the minute." Mira stood up, wiping her hands on her pants. "Okay, you're scaring me. What predictions? What are you talking about?" I tried to explain, told them about the dreams, about the papers with our names, about the exact times and methods of death, about Jake's car accident at 7:43, about Mira drowning at 9:15, about my heart stopping at 3:17. They listened, but I could see it in their faces. They thought I was losing it, having some kind of breakdown. When I finished, Jake put a hand on my shoulder. "Hey, look, I don't know what's going on with you, but there's no predictions in there. It's just our old toys and drawings and stuff. It's harmless, you don't know that. You haven't opened it yet. So let's open it," Mira said. "Let's open it right now and prove there's nothing scary inside. Would that help?" "No," I said, but they were already kneeling back down. Jake was unlatching the lid. Mira was pulling it open. I watched, helpless, as they reached inside and started pulling out items. The race car, the drawing, the CD, the same things I'd seen in the dream. "See," Jake said, holding up his Hot Wheels. "Just kid stuff, nothing scary." But then Mira pulled out the envelope. The unmarked envelope. She opened it and took out the Polaroids. I backed away. Number. This was happening again. Exactly the same way. Mira held up the photos. The three of us on the playground. The three of us in front of the school. And the third photo with our empty eyes and the words, "They know now." "What the hell?" she muttered. Jake pulled out the folded papers. His name on the first one. Mira's on the second. Mine on the third. He opened his, read it. His face went pale. Then he looked at me and I saw belief in his eyes. He believed me now. But it was too late. "Car accident," he whispered. "Route 46, 7:43 p.m. Tonight." Mira opened hers. "Drowning, bathtub, 9:15 p.m. Her hands started shaking. "I was right," I said. "I tried to warn you." Jake stood up fast. Okay, we don't follow the predictions. I don't take Route 46. Mira doesn't take a bath. We change our plans. We beat this." "It doesn't work like that," I said. "I've seen this already. You try to avoid it and it finds you anyway. The predictions aren't warnings. They're certainties." "No," Mira said firmly. "No, I'm not accepting that. We make our own choices. We can change this." She was already walking back to her car, moving fast. Jake followed. I trailed behind them, feeling like I was watching a movie I'd already seen, knowing the ending but powerless to change it. We stood by our cars. Jake pulled out his phone. "I'm calling in sick tomorrow. I'm not driving anywhere tonight. I'm going straight home and I'm staying there." "Good," Mira said. "I'm doing the same. No bath, no water. I'm sleeping on the couch in my living room if I have to." They both looked at me. "What about you?" Jake asked. I pulled out my paper. 3:17 a.m. Heart stops. No warning. I've got more time than you two. I'll worry about me after we get you both past your times. "We'll all check in," Mira said. "Every hour. If anyone doesn't respond, the others call 911, just like before. The same plan, the same hope that we could beat this." At 7 p.m., we were all in our separate homes, texting updates. Jake was taking side roads home. Mira was avoiding her bathroom entirely. I was trying to remember every detail from the dreams, looking for any deviation, any sign that this time would be different. At 7:43 p.m., Jake stopped responding. At 8:03 p.m., I got a call from the police. Car accident. Jake Mitchell. Dead on impact. At 9:15 p.m., Mira stopped responding. At 9:31 p.m., I got another call. Pipe burst. Mira Rodriguez drowned. And I was alone again, waiting for 3:17 a.m., waiting to die. Waiting for the loop to complete. Except this time I understood. This wasn't the first loop. It wasn't the second. I'd been living this day over and over, dying over and over. Each time trying to change things, each time failing. The dreams weren't dreams. They were memories. Memories from previous loops bleeding through. At 3:17 a.m., my heart would stop, and then I'd wake up again. November 2nd, 7 a.m., and I'd try again, and fail again. How many times had I done this? How many times had I watched Jake and Mira die? How many times had I died myself? I didn't know. Lost count. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. At 3:16 a.m., sitting on my couch, I finally understood the truth. The predictions weren't about when we'd die. They were about when we'd realize we'd never been alive at all. Not since 5th grade. Not since we buried that capsule. We died that day. All three of us. Some accident, some incident at school that nobody remembered because it had been erased. The time capsule was our grave marker. And we'd been ghosts ever since, living borrowed time, unaware that we were already dead. The predictions were our memories catching up. Our 10-year-old selves trying to tell our adult selves the truth. They know now. We know now. We're dead. We've always been dead. At 3:17 a.m., I closed my eyes. Let my heart stop. Let myself fade. And when I woke up at 7 a.m. on November 2nd, I didn't fight it anymore. I let the loop continue. Let Jake and Mira dig up the capsule. Let them read the predictions. Let them die trying to escape the inevitable. Because that's what ghosts do. We repeat. We loop. We haunt the same moments over and over, unable to move forward, unable to change anything. The time capsule wasn't a burial, it was a trap. and we'd been caught in it for 20 years. We just hadn't realized until it was too late.